Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Mont Rochelle. While all of our viewers are busy logging on, we just wanted to give you a chance to have a look at the beautiful views that we have this evening. So I'll be chatting to you in about 1 or 2 minutes. Let's just give everyone a chance to log on. Thanks. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the views as much as we're enjoying the views tonight. I think everyone should be logged in now, so I'd like to start by welcoming you all to our beautiful property, Mont Rochelle, here in Franschhoek. So we're obviously situated in the southern tip of South Africa, and around about 75 kilometers east of Cape Town. So this is the valley where our property is situated. It's a very special place, as you can see. We're actually heading into autumn at the moment, so there might be a little bit of a wind blowing because there's a front coming on Monday that's bringing some rain, so excuse if there might be a little bit of a wind sound in the background. It's obviously just due to the weather. So I've got James Besson, the estate GM, who's joining me. He's on camera. Cheers, James.
Cheers, guys.
And my name is Dustin, and I'm the winemaker here at Mont Rochelle. I can say fortunately at the moment I'm getting an opportunity to spend time in the manor house because of lockdown that's happening at the moment. So when we heard that lockdown was going to happen, I had to make a hasty move with the family and with the dogs and everyone in tow, and we moved into the manor house in order to be able to look after all of the wines in the winery. Obviously the harvest was basically just finishing, happening on the 26th of March, so there was a lot of work to still be done in the winery. So I'm fortunate enough to be able to stay here at the moment and enjoy these beautiful views, which is amazing. I'm really enjoying being on the farm. So just a little bit about Mont Rochelle. Obviously we're part of the Virgin Limited Edition group. And we're actually the only property that produces wines within the group, and I think everyone knows the Virgin Limited Group is obviously all the properties that are part of Richard Branson's portfolio of estates. So we, as I mentioned, we're situated in Franschhoek. It's a very small little town, a very quaint town that's focused a lot on winemaking, obviously, and also tourism and restaurants. Being part of the group, and with the group doing a whole lot of different virtual things, Ulusaba is doing a lot of game drives, Mahalo, Missouri is doing game drives, we decided we wanted to do something that's quite interesting for our viewers as far as wine goes. So what we thought about was to make something that's very interesting and very fun for you guys to do tonight, something that's quite interactive. So what I wanted to do is actually summarize how I taste wine and the way that I taste wine. And it's not about making it too technical. We're not tasting for for competition or anything like that. It's more a relaxed vibe as to how I go about tasting wine. So that's what we decided to do tonight. So when you're looking at actually tasting of wine, one of the most important things for me is obviously a glass makes a big influence on enjoying the product that you have in your glass. I prefer a wider stem glass at the bottom that narrows to the top, that can concentrate the smell in the top of the glass. But if you're sitting at home during lockdown and you've only got a normal glass, that'll be fine as well. So if you're able to grab a glass, and any wine that you've got at home, feel more than welcome to pour it into the glass, because what I'm presenting is not specific to a certain cultivar or anything. I'm just trying to give you a broad idea of how to taste wine. So for me, there are basically three things that I look at when I'm tasting wine. And one of the first things is obviously the appearance, the color, and then obviously the aroma, the smell, and then obviously the palate, the taste. What are you tasting? Those are the three, very simplified things that one would look at when they're tasting wine. So the first thing, as I mentioned, the color is when you obviously put the wine in the glass. You can tilt your glass to 45 degrees and you can look at it against a white piece of paper. I didn't bring a piece of paper with me tonight, but I know the wine that I'm drinking tonight quite well. So obviously you'll look at the wine. There's various different indicators that you can look for. Is the wine clear? Is the wine hazy? Has the wine got sediment in? Those are all things that you'd look at. If the wine's got a little bit of bubbles in it, it might give you a clue that it's either a champagne or MCC, or a really recently bottled white wine that's got a little bit of bubbles happening in it. So that's basically how you look at color. And obviously, broad terms, is it a white or is it a red wine? Is obviously quite things that you'll be looking at. And then if it's a red wine and a white wine, if you're looking at the color, if it's got a little bit of a browning color, it's starting to go a little bit brown or brick red around the rim, it might indicate that the wine's a little bit of an older wine, not a very young wine. So all of those things that you see will start getting your brain ticking as to what you might be smelling and what you might be tasting that's coming up. So those are all precursors and indicators of what's to come. So once you've obviously had the wine in the glass, had a look at it, the next thing is to take the wine, get your nose in there. Don't be scared. I see a lot of people that try and waft the wine from far away. Just put your nose in it and try and get the aromas that are coming out. It's good to give it a little swirl. When you're giving it a little bit of a swirl, it will kind of what we call volatilize, but easier word is it just makes the fruit more apparent. So the fruit will come up and it will be trapped in the narrow part of the glass, and you can give it a nose. So when you're smelling wines, it's quite important to realize that what you're smelling normally is very influential on what you taste. Okay, so you must keep that in mind, because when a lot of times when you have a flu or something and your nose is blocked, you can't taste. The taste is gone. So aroma is very, very important in the taste of the wine. I think this is a good period now, while I'm smelling the wine, is to show you what I'm doing here. I'm actually tasting a Sauvignon Blanc today myself. It's the Mont Rochelle Sauvignon Blanc. And if you're looking at what I have on the table here, I've actually taken various different fruits and cut them up. And this is actually a nice side way of cheating for aroma and flavor. I actually used to do this when I was at university, at Lincoln University in New Zealand, way back in 2002, where you actually take the raw product, cut it into pieces, smell it, and taste it. You'll be amazed at how, when you practice things, the better you get at it. And this is a very good way of doing it. So if you're at home now and you actually don't have a bottle of wine, go and grab some nachis, some limes, or whatever you may want, and smell them. And you'll see that's how you can train up your palate. So because I'm doing Sauvignon Blanc, in front of me I've got some green peppers, I've got lemons, I've got limes, I've got some nachi, I've got some gooseberries, some granadilla, I've got some guava, I've got some kiwi fruit, some grapefruit, and some pineapple. So for me, these are all fruits that are quite apparent in different Sauvignon Blancs around the world. Whether it be a cool climate or a warmer climate Sauvignon, this is kind of the spectrum of fruits that you'll be getting from those style of wines. So as I mentioned, this is a very nice way of practicing. I'm not going to go into tasting any of these fruits right now, but I just thought I'd show you a very nice way of doing that. So just getting back to the aroma and the smelling, what I enjoy doing, as I mentioned, is the first smell is I'll smell the wine. Don't drink the wine, sorry. I'll smell the wine, and it's very important to start broad. So don't try and be too fine with your first smell. Go broad. So just think about because I'm tasting Sauvignon Blanc, one of the things for me is straight away is tropical. It's tropical. So from then I'll think, okay, tropical fruits, and then I'll go back to it, and I'll try and pin down what kind of tropical fruits am I getting. So for me on this one, I'm getting quite a bit of this pineapple. There's a bit of sort of a lemon rind, a bit of grapefruit and guava. Those are the spectrums of fruit that I'm getting. And when you're smelling wine, what we're looking for when we're smelling wine is basically there's three different kinds of smells that you're looking for, or aromas that you're looking for. Primary aroma, which is aromas that are there from the cultivar of the grape itself, or from the terroir, from the vineyards. Then you're looking for secondary aromas, which are any aromas that come from wine making. So whether it be in barrel, if it's been put in barrel, if it's a Chardonnay, you'll get sort of, creamy, buttery, very oaky vanillin coming through. And then tertiary aromas are more aromas that come around from aging, from development in the bottle. So those are the three primary aromas that you will be picking up, the three aromas that you'll be picking up in the glass. So once I've smelt it.
Sorry to interrupt, Dustin.
Yes.
We've got our first couple of questions coming through. The first one is, would you look for tropical fruits in a Chardonnay too? And what's best, having it chilled or drinking it at room temperature?
So in Chardonnay, tropical fruits, definitely. You definitely get a lot of sort of, stone fruit kind of characters in Chardonnay. So you'll get anything from depending on obviously where it's made. I don't want to get too technical in old world and new world and how the wines are made stylistically, because that can have a massive effect on the aromas that you're picking up. But in general, the tropical fruits for me from Chardonnay is your peaches, your apricots, your cling peaches, all that spectrum of fruits. Maybe some melons, papaya, that spectrum of fruit is what I'd be getting from that. Those would be the tropical fruits that I'm picking up. Yeah.
And what would you say would be better, chilled or room temperature?
For Chardonnay, I would say anything sort of 15, 16, 17 degrees, so slightly chilled. I don't, and also room temperature is a broad question, as everyone knows. European room temperature is very different to South African room temperature. But for me, around about, that spectrum, 16 to 18 degrees, if you're looking at Chardonnay, because I don't want it too cold, because I feel that it will mute some of the fruit characters in the wine. So I was talking about aroma, and I mentioned when I've been in for my second go, I start looking for more specific things that I'm picking up. And kind of once I've got sort of 5 different fruit characters that I'm picking up, it's done. That's cool. I'm happy with that. Then I'll start moving on to the best part of the tasting, and that's obviously drinking the wine. So what I do then obviously is take my first sip. Again, I'd start broad. Just take a sip. I like pulling a little bit of air over the wine because I feel it opens the wine up a little bit. And before I explain the first thing that I'm getting on this wine, it's also quite important to understand, the tongue. So your tongue is mapped out. You'll pick up sweetness on the tip. You pick up sourness on the sides, maybe acidity, and fruit and texture on the middle of the tongue. And at the back is where you pick up bitterness. So when I taste it, the first thing I'll do is, okay, what was I smelling? Am I picking up any of those smells in what I'm tasting? So for me on this wine, and obviously I know this wine very well because it's a wine that I've made, so I can talk about this wine in my sleep. But on the palate, I'm definitely picking up a fresh citrus sort of character, some nice acidity. It's got some of those tropical fruits that are coming through as well. Then once I've had my first sip, I'll start looking at you know, what is the weight of the wine like? What is the palate like? It will give you, so I'm talking specifically Sauvignon Blanc now, or white wine now, but if you're looking at red wines, you'll be looking at, is there a lot of density, is there a lot of texture, what are the tannins like on my palate, is it balanced, all those sort of things. But Sauvignon Blanc, I'm looking more at the freshness of the wine. Again, if it was bubbly in the beginning, I'd taste the wine and you might pick up a little bit of that effervescence on the palate, which would make it a bit more fresh.
Dustin, sorry to interrupt again, but our questions are flying through here. So, firstly, how long would you keep a Sauvignon Blanc for, or should you drink it straight away?
That's a very good question. You know, so you'd look at the difference between New World wine drinkers and Old World wine drinkers. If I just look at Mont Rochelle itself, anyway, I've got some 2009 Sauvignon Blanc that's still in the cellar, that are open every now and then, that's still fresh and lively and beautiful. And the ageability of the wines also, you know, it depends on a specific vintage. Some vintages are better than other vintages. So if you have a cool climate vintage being a growing season, where you have nice natural acidities, in general, the wines will age longer, obviously if they're handled properly at bottling. So for me, I actually prefer older Sauvignons. I'm open to older Sauvignons. But the narrative, unfortunately, with New World or with a lot of South African Sauvignons, is that you need to drink them within 1 or 2 years. But the reality is you don't really have to do that. Those wines can age for a long, long time, as long as it's a good vintage, first of all, and secondly, you know, when they bottle the wine, when they put it into bottle, that the bottling process was handled properly, and there wasn't a lot of dissolved oxygen and all these other terms in the wine. But in general, we drink Sauvignon way too young.
Okay, and once you've opened the wine, how long on average can you keep a white or red wine open until it's not drinkable anymore?
That's also is an interesting one. Obviously, it depends on, you know, so we might be getting a little bit technical now, but if you've got any wine savers, so a lot of people, you know, if they don't want to drink a whole bottle every night, obviously in my household with my wife and I, we basically drink a bottle a night, so that's not a problem. But if you don't drink your whole bottle, if you only want one glass, a lot of people might use a wine saver, which is a argon and carbon dioxide spray that you can spray on, that will preserve the wine. But in general for me, and it also depends if you put it in the fridge, if you close the bottle, but in general for me, you know, a Sauvignon, I can leave, if it's a half a bottle, 2 to 3 days. I wouldn't go past that myself, but it's a very broad question.
And then lastly, what type of food would you pair with a Sauvignon Blanc?
Now this is very interesting for me because I'm actually going to pour a little bit more. I really enjoy Sauvignon because I studied in New Zealand, and one of my favorite things to do as a student was to buy a bottle of Sauvignon Blanc on a Friday and then go down to the local fish and chip shop and get a battered fish with some chips and go and sit by the sea and enjoy a nice bottle of Sauvignon with fish and chips. That batter and that oiliness of that fish and taking that Sauvignon, the acidity cuts into it perfectly. So that for me is I guess it's because it's got so much memories for me that I enjoy it, but for me it really, really worked. So for me, I really enjoy that. That's what I would be pairing it with myself. Okay, so sorry, I got a little bit lost now. Once, as I mentioned, I was basically on the taste and on the finish, looking at my final thought on the wine. So once you've pinned down, you know, what you enjoy about the flavor of the wine, how it feels on your palate, the last question that you need to ask yourself, obviously, is did I like this wine? Did I enjoy this wine? Because that's the most important thing, is you're drinking wine to enjoy it. And that's the last question that you ask yourself. Would I buy another bottle, and did I enjoy the wine? And that's very, very simply put how you can taste wine obviously what I've explained, as I mentioned before, is not what you'd be using in tasting competitions and all the rest of it. There they break down the wines even further. But it's just for you, a few pointers for you at home as to how you can go about bettering your tasting skills. A very nice thing to say is also, you know, there's a big difference between drinking a wine and tasting a wine. When you're drinking a wine, obviously you're just drinking the wine, you're not thinking about it. But when you're tasting a wine, you actually start thinking about it, taking some time over a wine, and that's when you start picking out all of these interesting and intrinsic qualities about the wine. So that's why, I mean, I enjoy, obviously, whenever I'm cooking, it's all about tasting and flavors. So that's what excites me about drinking and tasting wine, obviously. So that's basically how I would go about tasting wine.
We've got quite an important question here, Dustin. Where can we get to buy your wines?
Yeah, so to end off, I think the easiest would be at the moment, obviously we're under lockdown, so in export or foreign countries they are allowed to deliver, but in South Africa we'd only be allowed to deliver after lockdown, which is in stage 3 at the moment, we think. And from the best way to get hold of the wines is to go to our website. So if you go to www.virginlimitededition.com and you click on Mont Rochelle and you go to buy our wines, it'll show you exactly where you'd be able to come across our beautiful wines. Okay, so I'm gonna take this bottle of wine and I'm gonna go and enjoy it with the family and the kids. I'm just about to start a fire. It's a beautiful night, and I hope you guys enjoyed joining us this evening, and we hope to welcome you back very soon. Cheers, thanks so much.